It's going to fade to you.
Gun Owners Radio. We make activism easy. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for listening to Gun Owners Radio. Have you checked out our website and social media? Sign up for our email alerts by going to our website, gunownersradio.com.
And a big thank you to Discount Gun Mart for letting us set up shop here. Don't forget to check out DGM in San Diego on Marina or in Santee out by Gillespie Field off the 67. Or just go to discountgunmart.com for more info.
Put the dough back and donate. We want you to be more involved in helping to fund a Second Amendment related organization, so take time to donate. This week's Dough Back and Donate recipient is Firearms Policy Coalition. So, right now, go to Firearms Policy Coalition. Firearms Policy.org and donate today to support all the great legal work and lawsuit wins that FPC has.
I think this go back and donate idea is a good one. I like it.
I like it too.
I think some people are benefiting from it, but that's all we got, guys. We got people and money, so help us get funding some of these organizations that need it.
All right, now it's time for our Gun Truth of the Week.
Yeah.
Gun Truth of the Week, where we give you the facts that you won't hear from other media.
That was smooth.
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Very satisfying.
So this is it. Your Gun Truth of the Week. It is. This is an interesting one. In 2016, the U.S. Department of Justice published a chart showing that the number of DGUs, that's defensive gun uses, are 6 times as many as the number of criminal gun uses per year. So one more time, in 2016, the U.S. Department of Justice published a chart showing that the number of DGUs are 6 times as many as the number of criminal gun uses per year.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so you got Q's and we have A's. Send me your questions. I get to say, all week I get questions. I get questions through the different packs. I get questions through the different organizations. We get a bunch of questions, and I thought the best thing to do is to turn it into a segment where we answer your questions, where I answer your questions on various things. The first one is actually the only one this week is I got a lot of inquiries on the Senate pick.
Right.
And his name's John Thune, and he's no stranger to the Senate. He's been around for decades. And people wanted to know, because there were a couple of different folks. There was John Cornyn, and there were a couple of different folks that were up for a leadership role in the new Senate that's coming up, which of course is controlled by our supposed friends, the Republicans. And John Cornyn was not a good pick, so I'm glad he did not get the nod. He did some things that did not help gun owners, and it just didn't help. And I know everybody, but he's from Texas. Okay, well, he did some things that hurt us. So, Texas or not, I'm glad he didn't. So let's go through John's voting record, because that's really the most important thing. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what party you belong to. I don't care what you say in public or private. I care about, when it matters most, you got to vote. How do you vote? So, looking it up, this is from ontheissues.org, which is a fairly good website. There's a couple of different websites I look at to see where exactly people voted on different issues, but ontheissues.org is something I would definitely add to your bookmark. So, John Thune, he voted no on banning high-capacity magazines, which are normal capacity magazines, or any magazine that holds more than 10 bullets. He voted no to ban. That's a good vote. Voted yes on allowing firearms in checked luggage on Amtrak trains, which is awesome. Voted yes on prohibiting foreign and UN aid that restricts U.S. gun ownership. Again, awesome. Voted yes on prohibiting lawsuits against gun manufacturers. Again, fantastic vote. Voted no on decreasing gun waiting periods from 3 days to 1. Voted no on decreasing gun waiting periods from 3 days to 1 day. That's interesting. I would guess that would probably need some more context, like because technically you'd want a shorter waiting period, and he voted against that. but my guess is there's some context there. You know, if you're against waiting periods completely, then voting to shorten a waiting period is still voting for a waiting period. So let's just kind of, we'll call that a data point. He's rated A by NRA, indicating a pro-gun rights voting record. He sponsored a bill for national standard, for national reciprocity, concealed carry reciprocity. He sponsored a bill, which we're going to talk about reciprocity here later on the show, but that's a good thing. Let's see. Allowed veterans to register unlicensed guns acquired abroad. Again, a good thing. Opposed the United Nations Army Trade Treaty. Again, good. Opposes restrictions on right to bear arms. Reciprocity across state lines. He supports reciprocity. Ban gun registration and trigger lock law in Washington, D.C. Good. Allow firearms in national parks. I don't know if you guys know this, but back in 2000, I think it started in 2009. I think it voted on in 08, started in 2009. National parks have to mirror the concealed carry laws of the state host. So if you're in Utah and you have a Utah CCW or whatever, you know, if you're in Zion, for example,
Right.
and you're wondering, hey, can I carry, or what are the gun laws in Zion because it's a national park? They mirror the state's gun laws.
The host state.
The host state, yeah. So I think that's probably a good thing. Sponsor bill to apply concealed carry permit in all states. Again, that's reciprocity. Dangerousness, no mental. Wait. Dangerousness, not mental incompetence, limits gun rights. Oh, this is 2009. So they were basically trying to take guns away from war vets, is really what it amounted to.
Right.
And he voted against that. So this guy has an impeccable voting record.
Yeah. Sounds like a win.
Sounds like a win.
Around, right?
I think that a lot of good things could happen underneath John Thune leading the U.S. Senate, which was, it's not always the case. You can't just put a Republican in charge and say, all right, here we go. You know, it really truly has to be somebody of substance, somebody that's really stood up for Second Amendment. So anyway, so that's all the Q's and A's for this week. So as everybody's noticed that Alicia's not here.
Yep.
Rich, the
Missing
producer.
Alicia.
Is this the first time you've been on?
Yeah, actually, I think so. Actually, in front of the mic, so first time. So be kind, guys.
You've been producing Gun Owners Radio for how long?
I don't know.
6, 7 years? Something
Has
like
it
that?
been?
Yeah.
Seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goes by fast.
We've been
It's
around
fun.
for 8 years, and I think at least 5, but more like 6 or 7 years you've been producing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Been involved. First time in front of the camera or in front of the mic. So.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a good job. Did you
Yeah,
watch the
thanks.
fight over the weekend?
Yeah.
Did
watch
you?
It? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I thought it ended the way it had to end.
What?
Right.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if Jake knocked out Mike,
Yeah.
he would have been a villain, and nobody would want to do business with him again. You know, Jake. I think Jake is. He is. Maybe he's not a professional boxer, but he is a master promoter, and he knows how to put butts in seats, and that's what they did, and that was the story that he sold, that they sold, and just got everybody, you know, paying attention. Brought down Netflix's servers, right? So
Yeah, kept the buffering problems.
yeah.
I don't understand. I don't. Mike Tyson didn't look like the Mike Tyson who, you know, he was releasing a couple of videos.
Yeah.
Throughout the training.
He
And
looked
I'm going.
ferocious.
He looked ferocious.
Yeah.
And then he got in the ring, and I'm like, what's going on?
Right.
And I don't know. I have a couple of theories.
All right. Theory number one.
Theory number one is that it is as straightforward, because he didn't look good at all. He
Yeah.
just didn't look good at all. He didn't look
Right.
good in round one. He didn't look good throughout the entire fight.
Right.
And he certainly didn't look anything like the Mike Tyson I remember in the 80s and 90s.
No.
But I didn't expect him to look totally like that. But anyway, theory number one is it is as straightforward as he presented in his tweet, which was he had a serious health issue a couple of months ago, and it affected him more than he anticipated it affecting him. So he actually said he was on death's door in June.
Yeah. There was that tweet about him getting some kind of transfusion or something.
And he didn't give too many details, but he made it clear that he was on death's door. That's theory number one. That, okay, all right, he didn't quite make it back from that setback. And they did have to delay the fight, so there is some, so he didn't quite make it back from that setback like he wanted, but he thought, heck, I'm 58 years old, I'm just going to go for it. That's theory number one. Theory number two is he just doesn't have it anymore. And that it's easy to look like a stud in a 30-second training video.
Right.
But then getting in front of a
It's been
crowd.
produced.
Yeah, that's theory number two. Is he really truly just didn't have it anymore.
Right.
Theory number three.
All right, is this the conspiracy theory?
This is the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Theory number three is.
All right, this is where it gets good.
I haven't totally verified it, but I'm starting to see that there were incentives. I'm starting to see people talk about incentives in his contract for it to be a long fight.
I've been seeing those threads as well.
What do you think about that?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, because there are a couple of times that it looks very, very much like he pulled some punches.
Mike
Tyson.
Because it totally looked like Jake was holding back.
So I don't really know. That's the other thing. I don't know enough about this Jake guy to tell, but I know I've watched a lot of Mike Tyson.
Right.
And it looked to me like he was going to be the Mike Tyson I know and stopped, pulled back.
Well, there was that thing where he was biting his gloves.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't remember that being an issue in his previous one. I saw a couple comments saying that he was just biting his gloves so he doesn't knock Jake out.
Well, I don't know, but I wonder if he thought, okay, I'm going to, what was it, 8 rounds?
Yeah.
8 2-minute rounds?
8 2-minute rounds.
So I wonder if he was like, all right, I'm going to get to round 7 or 8. I'm going to dance around, get to round 7 or 8. And then gets to round 8 and realizes he doesn't have anything left in the tank.
Yeah.
Like because he definitely didn't put on his best performance. Like not even close. Not even to like 20%.
Did you see that last fight against who was it? Roy? Was it Roy Jones? It was an exhibition match. He was one of the commenters. I was just wondering, you didn't see that?
I don't. What talk to me? Why?
Well, I mean, he was. I'm just wondering if he was as energetic then as what he was displaying last Friday night, right?
I guess I don't remember it well enough to tell. Anyway, I was. I got to tell you, I watched it once. I got Netflix and watched it, and then watched it again that night. I was up late watching it a second time, and then I really kind of had to go to sleep. I got to tell you, man. I think if you're over 45, I think this Tyson fight was more than just a fight.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You want to see Mike Tyson knock him out, right? You want to see him just go to town, like it's kind of like the good old days,
But I think I think it's even more than that. I think that there are a lot of people going, all right, I think it felt like, well, gosh, I guess this is not. It's not just the end of an era. Like it's a reminder that the end of the era was 20 years ago. Yeah. If you're Gen X, if you're a guy in Gen X, you're over like 40, 45, and you watched Mike Tyson grow up. Yeah. Or you watched Mike Tyson growing up.
Yeah. Playing his video game.
Playing his video game, and and you just realize, okay, I think you were hoping, I think you were projecting some of your feelings onto Mike. Maybe I'm speaking just for myself, but I was kind of bummed. I had to sleep on it. And the next morning, he had that explanation. I'm like, well, let's hope that's all it is. But I don't know. I don't know who that other dude is, to be honest with you. He seems to have, I don't know. He probably needs to fight a legit boxer in his weight class using standard rules.
Right.
He's done enough, unless he's just trying to make money. But if he's trying to be respected as a boxer, then he needs to do what boxers do.
But it would have been, I think, an even bigger discrepancy,
With what do you mean?
Mike after the second round, it looked like that's.
Yeah. Well.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like the 2 minutes, the 8 rounds, like that was probably right for Tyson in this fight. But I mean, going forward,
right?
Like, what's his name? Jake Paul. Jake Paul's
right.
next fight needs to be a legit boxing match against a legit.
Well, he was calling out Canelo, and wasn't there somebody else?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't been watching boxing in a long time. The interest in boxing I have in my life was Mike Tyson.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Mike Tyson left. I kind of left too. Tommy Morrison. I liked Tommy Morrison, but God, what a disaster that was.
Man, I'm not familiar with Tommy.
His life just turned into a disaster. But Mike Tyson, I think there are a lot of people like me who were really only interested in boxing because of how dominant Mike Tyson was.
It was a spectacle.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I honestly, sincerely don't know what to say about it. All right. Why don't we do? You want to do some lawsuit updates? We got a really cool guest coming up here in about 15 minutes.
All right. So this segment is our legal and legislative segment where we tell what you need to know from the courts and the legislators. So remember, though, I'm not a lawyer and Mike's not a lawyer, and we are not giving you legal advice. And all legal advice should come from a properly licensed California lawyer. And our sponsor, John Dillon, is a lawyer. So if you have anything gun-related and need a lawyer, get a hold of John. His website is dillonlawgp.com, and his phone number is 760-642-7150.
Okay, so this section, what we try to do is kind of wrap up, well, what are all the important things that happened in the legal world over the last week, so that kind of your one-stop shop.
Yeah. Decipher it.
Yeah, talk about it. I'll tell you what, let's start with the Trump's national reciprocity, because I am getting a lot of questions. There's a lot of interest in that. So why don't we start there, and then we'll talk about a lawsuit that FPC is filing. And again, don't forget to put the dough back in donate. Go to firearmspolicy.org, give them a donation, help them out. Man, have they stepped up and really are doing what it takes to win the cases in the court. So please, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can do, Firearms Policy Coalition, go to firearmspolicy.org and make a donation today. But let's start with reciprocity. So it's pretty interesting. I'm gonna play you a video here in just a minute. So Trump came out strong for reciprocity. And what does that mean? So the question is it possible to make my CCW in whatever state I'm in work all over the country like a driver's license? So you get a driver's license in California, you can drive in 50 states.
Right.
You get a CCW in California, only California recognizes that CCW. So the question is, can we make it more like a driver's license? And Trump came out really strong in favor of reciprocity. Now, Trump can't just do that. He doesn't have a magic wand. He can't just sign an executive order. He's not an emperor. That's got to go through Congress. It's got to go through the House. It's got to go through the Senate, and then he'll sign it into law. The best he can do is influence and, ask and work with Congress and say, hey, this is a priority, which it sounds like it is. And there actually was a reciprocity law, or bill, I should say. There was a reciprocity bill a few years ago. And you know what stopped it? Do you remember this, Rich?
What stopped it?
So there was a reciprocity bill that the House approved, and it was on its way to the Senate. And then they stopped it. They basically said, we want reciprocity and we want more thorough background checks.
Okay.
And what stopped it was the Las Vegas shooting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. Why would that stop it?
Everybody got emotional.
Everyone got emotional. That's all it was. But it was ready to go. And the House of Representatives passed it, and then the Senate said forget it. But they did do the enhanced background checks. They took that part. Anyway, so that's what would have to happen. But here's what's interesting. So this is ABC National. This isn't local ABC.
Okay.
That we're going to play this clip. This is national ABC, the United States, not local San Diego or whatever. And they made a huge mistake. They don't even understand what they're talking about. So why don't we play it, and then I'll go into more detail. You play the clip, Matt?
Oh, we don't have the
clip.
We don't have the clip.
No?
We have no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so here's the deal. Let me read you a little bit of it. As President-elect Donald Trump prepares to move back into the White House, gun violence prevention advocates are bracing for him to keep his campaign promise to sign a nationwide, quote, concealed carry reciprocity, end quote, law. The move would allow gun owners with concealed carry permits to travel with their weapons in all 50 states. So they get it right there, right? But if in the clip, they actually start talking about how, let's see.
Here it is.
You got the clip?
Well, no, I don't.
Okay, so basically,
I'll share it in the comments.
What they start talking about is they start talking about constitutional carry. So the actual interviews that they do and the feedback they get from these anti-gun groups, they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be horrible. Cops aren't gonna know who has a gun and who does. None of them are gonna be registered. People are just gonna be carrying guns and they don't know." Blah 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 blah. They started criticizing constitutional carry when what Trump is talking about is national CCW reciprocity,
right?
Which is totally different. So they don't even understand. So not only did ABC News kind of show their
ignorance
and anti-gun slant,
right.
But even the anti-gunners, and who knows, are they doing it on purpose? Are they saying, "Hey, look at the shiny object over here. Let's make everybody believe that reciprocity means unregistered guns"? I mean, they've had a lot of success with the ghost gun thing.
Well, that's the thing is these are ambiguous terms, which I think it intentionally makes things confusing.
Right.
So people just don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Right. And so just because of that, because it's confusing, people don't it's too hard to figure out what's okay and what's not. So I'm not even going to bother with it. I'm just going to not even become a gun owner, not even bother with it. So that's the
and they try to turn the
problem.
public on their side. So you have somebody who maybe is in a squishy district,
right.
and you got a bunch of people calling saying, "We don't want unregistered gun owners carrying guns and committing crime." Meanwhile, CCW holders as a group commit fewer crimes
right.
than the general population. As a group, commit fewer crimes than police officers. You don't go through, you don't take the steps with the background check and all that other stuff, the training, the things that you have to do to get a CCW. You don't go through those things if your intention is to go, rob a bank or cause harm to people.
Yeah.
You're law-abiding. You're sane, trained, and law-abiding. So they really tried to stick it to the public on that. Now, the process, again, is, and the way it was written before, the bill, the way it was written before, there was some argument over, it was kind of interesting. The big argument was, is it only for people who have a CCW from their home state, or can any state's CCW be issued to anybody and honored everywhere? So what am I talking about? So do you have to, like, say you're in California, do you have to get a CCW in California to be honored by 50 states, 49 other states? Or if you're in California, can you get an Arizona CCW or a Utah CCW?
By mail-in Arizona or something?
So that was a debate. And they weren't quite, it wasn't real clear on which direction they were going to go. But what's happened since then? What's happened since then is in California, you can get a CCW.
Right.
So it kind of doesn't matter. So the reason people were concerned before, they were like, wait a minute, I want to be able to get a Utah CCW even though I'm a California resident, and it needs to count in all 50 states. Right. The reason that was a concern before was because they couldn't get a California CCW.
Right.
People in Riverside generally couldn't get a CCW.
Right.
People in San Diego, well, let me think. Yeah, at the time it was still, I think it was before we were able to get the sheriff to, actually I can't quite remember if it was or what. I think it was still before the time when we were able to get CCWs. But the Bruin decision made this easier.
Right.
Made it less of a problem. So I think what they're going to say is, even if they say, like, you have to have a CCW from your home state, fine. We have CCWs in California now, so we'll be able to carry in all 50 states. Well,
how does that affect the people living in constitutional carry states?
Good question. I got to tell you, if you are an anti-gunner, you are a hypocrite if you don't support this reciprocity law. And one of the ways you're a hypocrite is it will force people who want to carry in all 50 states to get a CCW rather than just carry, without a permit. So if you live in a constitutional carry state, name one. What's a constitutional carry state? Kansas?
Yeah,
Texas?
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
Arizona.
yeah.
Arizona.
Sure.
So you live in a constitutional carry state. You live in Arizona. Arizona, as long as you can legally own the gun, you can carry it concealed.
Right.
Actually, you can carry it open, but you are legally able to carry it concealed without a permit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in Arizona and you want to go vacation in San Diego or you want to go play the slots in Vegas,
Right.
You would have to have an Arizona carry license in order to go to California, in order to go to Nevada and carry legally.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Do all constitutional carry states offer permits?
I think, but I don't know that for a fact. But I think they do.
All right.
They all the constitutional carry states offered CCWs before they went constitutional carry.
Right.
So I can't imagine they dismantled that option.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if you're an anti-gunner, if you're out there, you're the Brady organization, or you're the moms who want action, then you should absolutely say, you know what, this reciprocity thing, it's a good idea. It forces people to get training. It forces people to have a background check, and it forces people in constitutional carry states to get a permit in order to carry.
Right.
So the fact that they're against this means they're a bunch of hypocrites who really just hate your guns and don't like you because you're a gun owner.
Just another example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I get it. There's probably some people out there. I shouldn't have a permit. I shouldn't have to ask for a. I get it. I understand.
2A is my
but
permit.
The reality is, the Supreme Court, the most pro Second Amendment advocate on the pro Second Amendment Supreme Court, said that CCWs are constitutional. You just can't make them subjective. So that's the world we live in, unfortunately. But my point is, it looks like it's a much easier road, and anti-gunners are a bunch of hypocrites who hate guns. That's my point. All right, let's talk about one more thing before we bring on our guest. New lawsuit, relatively new. It just got filed a few weeks ago. FPC, again, support them. Firearms Policy Coalition. In the 4th District, which is North Texas, they're challenging a carry ban, speaking of carry and CCW, in places like bars, racetracks, and sporting events. The quote from Brandon Combs, Brandon Combs is the president of FPC, set sights on endorsement of location bans so peaceable adults can carry without fear of prosecution. He described the bans as unconstitutional and immoral, which is something I really like about Brandon in his quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Is he talks, first off, I like that he uses the phrase peaceable people.
Right.
So people that don't want to cause any harm to anybody.
Right.
And he also talks a lot about the immorality of these gun bans. So what's going to happen? So basically he's trying to get Texas to overturn their laws on where they ban carry in sporting events, racetracks, and bars, which is the current condition. Now, the Constitution has really only spelled out a few different places where it's absolutely constitutional, in their opinion, to ban carry. And that's polling places,
Makes sense.
where you go to vote,
Right.
legislative chambers, and courthouses. So this is going to force the courts to better define the opinion on what exactly is a quote-unquote sensitive place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And a bar being a sensitive place, why can't I go into a bar?
Right.
If I'm carrying, if I'm law-abiding, I don't drink.
Right.
I certainly don't get drunk. So why can't I go? Why is my self-defense limited in a bar or taken away in a bar? Why is that considered a sensitive place? They don't have guards at a bar. You don't have to have a background check to get into a bar. So is it really
a sensitive place?
Yeah. challenged the state to tell us exactly why they consider a bar a sensitive state. So the plaintiffs, if you're looking for this lawsuit, plaintiff Charles Ziegenfuss, I hope I said that right, Ziegenfuss. And, of course, there's a couple others, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, and Firearms Policy Coalition are the plaintiffs. And they cite the Bruin case. It explicitly stated that the Second Amendment guarantees a general right to carry or to public carry, meaning that ordinary law-abiding citizens may bear arms in public for self-defense. They do a fantastic job. This is a 13-page complaint. They talk all about, and they refer back to Bruin time and time again, and basically say, hey, look, it's all right for peaceable people. The other thing they reference is the fact that they've already said, hey, this is a right for all adults, 18, 19, and 20 years old. You can't take away their rights. So if that's the case, then you certainly can't take away their rights when they walk into a, sporting event, when you walk into a bar or a restaurant, that sells alcohol. So keep an eye on this lawsuit. It is yet another example of the Bruin case being a powerful tool and has opened up doors so that we can continue to expand, or basically really restore our right to keep and bear arms. All right? So that's what you got to know. That's what you got to know in the legal update.
Okay. That's our legal and legislative segment.
Okay, our guest today is from the great state of Arizona. We were just talking about Arizona. He is an Arizona state representative. He won Legislator of the Year from the Arizona Citizens Defense League, and we're going to talk to him. Don't forget, this is the time to put the dough back and donate. Donate to Firearms Policy Coalition. Go to firearmspolicy.org and give them $10, $50, $100, whatever you can afford. This segment is brought to you by our friends at Cargo, Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon. Go to cargostores.com or go visit them at 423 Broadway, El Cajon. Use GOR for 10% off their website, or mention Governor's Radio in the shop, or SDCGO at the store. And check them out. They have all kinds of really cool gadgets and gear, gun cases, watch cases, drone cases, custom cases, all kinds of really cool knickknacks. We interviewed Michael, the owner of Cargo, just a few weeks ago, and we're very, very happy. So check them out. At the very least, go down and say, hey, thanks for sponsoring the show. So Quang Nguyen from the state of Arizona, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Fantastic. Now you are you're a representative. You're in the so we call it the Assembly here in California. You guys call it? Is that the equivalent in Arizona? A representative?
The equivalent. So we're the House of Representatives, and there are 60 of us. Right as of right now, in 2024, after the November election, we're sitting at 33 Republicans to 27 Democrats. We came up 2 seats after being 31-29 for 4 straight years.
That's right. And you are a Republican and just got reelected, right?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And you and I met at the policy conference when you were here in San Diego for Second Amendment Foundation.
Yes, sir. That was a great event.
It was a great event. And I got to tell you, I was really the coolest thing about the event. I love the event. I love going and hearing the speeches and everything, and the buffet after was awesome. But the best part of the event is that I get to meet really interesting people like yourself. And my understanding of your story is, first off, you're an extremely passionate Second Amendment advocate, and of course, you are you're an elected official in Arizona. You've won awards for being Legislator of the Year for being so pro Second Amendment. But then I started to hear and read more about your history, and you are I would describe you as a refugee from Vietnam back in the 70s. You escaped Vietnam to come to the United States. Is that accurate? Is that how you describe it?
That's correct. I was one of the very few lucky people to be able to leave Vietnam just 6 days before the fall of Saigon. So I was born in 1962. So I went through three major communist invasions: 1968, 1972, and 1975. And I didn't enjoy any of it, if you can imagine. So people
Well,
ask
talk
me,
about that. What specifically? What changes did you notice? What things were actually happening to you as a citizen in Vietnam?
well, when you're growing up in Vietnam, it's amazingly when people say, I'm sorry you had such a rough life, but I would then actually argue against that. Life is life. You don't know any better. You wake up, there's a war going on. You go to school, there's a war going on. You go to bed, there's a war going on. And you hope to God that you don't hear bad news about your dad or your brothers serving out in the battlefields. So that was my life. I don't think about freedom because I never knew what it meant. I don't think about where my food is going to come next. I hope I have another meal the next day or be above ground the next day. And so it's you survive. As a child, you survive. And I was able to remember a lot of it because I was almost 13 years old when I left. And so when you talk about me being really a strong advocate for the Second Amendment, I didn't even know what the Second Amendment was until I learned how to read in English and understand the rights and the Constitution. And then I realized that, hey, maybe I lost my freedom because we didn't have something similar to the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment.
Well, and I think, and that's another interesting. I love that perspective, and I want to talk about it. But before we get too far away from your past, talk about were things noticeably worse when you were 5, or I'm sorry, when you were 13 than when you were 5? You know what I mean? Did you notice a progression of things getting worse around you? As the war escalated, as things started to really truly fall apart.
Absolutely. During the Tet Offensive, it was an uprising in every town, every village in South Vietnam. And so I was able to see the battles up front, up close. I remember being on top of the tree looking at cobras flying around, puffing away, if you know what I mean.
Cobras being the American attack helicopter.
Right. So you get closer to the fall of Saigon, you're beginning to hear more sounds. You're beginning to feel more rumbling of the B-52s going off. And I remember I used to play with a game where I actually sit at my desk doing my homework and feeling the rumbling of the B-52s from 300-400 miles away. I don't think any kid should go through that kind of stuff. And it was the game for me to catch my pencil as it's rolling off my desk.
That must have been terrifying.
Wow.
It was, but you got used to it. So I don't know if I can use this as an analogy. I remember when we had an earthquake, and all the kids are supposed to be under the desk, at school. There was an earthquake, and I was the only kid that was sitting at my desk, and everybody went down below, as they should, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, this rumbling is only about 5 or 10 seconds, and everybody freaked out. I'm used to the half an hour rumbling. And so it never bothered me that there was an earthquake going on.
So there were so many different sides and factions. You had, two sides, the communists in Vietnam, you had the anti-communists in Vietnam, you had the Americans, you even, probably weren't even aware, but there was some, Russian influence. There was, Chinese, there was Laos. There were so many different factions. When you were growing up, did you have an impression of who the good guys are, who the bad guys are? Was that
Absolutely. So if I may go back to history for a little bit, we had over 1,500 years of war in Indochina. So you got Mongolia. You got the Chinese occupation for over 1,000 years, and then you have the occupation of the French for 180 years or so. And then you have Americans coming. And by the way, before Americans came, there were Imperial Japan during World War II. right? And then you have Americans coming, and they were the only force that I can actually say they were not occupiers. All
And that
the
was,
other,
you were aware of that as a child.
Yeah.
yes, and I realized that very quickly. Why? Because my dad fought side by side with Americans. My two brothers, one was an airborne captain and one was an Army medic, and they fought side by side with Americans. So that was about the only time when I actually could say Americans were the good guy and still is the good guy. And so I formed that opinion quite early in my life.
So you're 13 years old, Saigon falls. How did you get out? And how was it determined that you got to get out, and how did you get out?
Yeah, so my dad was a lieutenant colonel, but he retired back in '73, which is 2 years before the fall of Saigon. And I remember he picked me and an older brother up from school, and he's, when he retired, he was given a Willie. So it's kind of cool that he's got a Jeep that he could drive around after retirement. And he picked us up and he dropped us off the Tân Sơn Nhất airfield, and he said, "See that C-130 over there? You're going to get on there with a bunch of people, and you may not ever see your mom and dad and your siblings again. So just, here's the bag of clothes, go."
Wow.
Wow.
And what was on the other side of the C-130? The C-130 landed in America at some point, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so the C-130, basically, it's a long route, man. It took me to the Philippines, and from the Philippines, we got onto a 747 parking. There were a line of 747s waiting for refugees for the first 100,000. And so I got on that thing, and it flew to Guam, and I was there for vetting and also vaccination for about 7 days there. And then eventually they flew me into country, which is Travis Air Force Base. And then from there to Camp Pendleton, and then on to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. So I was floating around quite a bit.
Now, did you see your dad again?
Yeah, so what happened was my mom and dad and the rest of my siblings were floating on a barge on April 29th, which is half a day before the fall of Saigon. So they got onto a barge and they floated out of the Saigon River. And once they got out to the Pacific Ocean, there's a USS Miller just sitting right out there. And they were so lucky to have that Navy ship sitting out there. And they were scooped up.
I can't even fathom that. So looking back as a child, like you said, that was just how life was. So you didn't really have anything to compare it to. But as you got settled in the United States, looking back on your first 13 years under communism, what was it? What are some things what are some things that are different? As far as like food and what you can and can't say and your rights and your freedom. What are some things that, looking back, you were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we went through that."
Clear though, that I do want to make it clear that I never lived under communism. I live in a communist war. But
interesting.
Yeah, but the fear is there because I remember growing up, and I'll get back to the United States part. But what I remember growing up is that my mom and dad said to me, "Don't go to school and share with your classmates what your dad does for a living," which is he was a lieutenant colonel working with Americans fighting the same war. And then I have an older brother who was an airborne captain. And no, we don't disclose that kind of information because you just don't know which kids had parents who are on the other side, the VC or the NVA. And so, there's not much talking in terms of what we do as a family, who we support. Do we support Americans? We don't talk about that. We were told very little that we don't talk about stuff like that. When I came to the United States, I realized that, there's actually enough food to eat. There isn't a fear of, are you going to get the next meal tomorrow? That fear just disappeared, right? And then, right after I went to high school, I realized that, hey, we can actually make fun of President Carter.
without fear
not being
of retribution or going to jail.
exactly. And so recently I gave a speech on Veterans Day, and this is what I actually said: the measure of freedom is depending on your ability to criticize your government. If you can criticize your government and not be taken out, you have real freedom.
You know, it's so true. One of the things you touched on that I think is so important, typically when you watch movies, there's definite good guys and there are definite bad guys. You know, somebody's in the black hat and somebody's in the white hat. And, you know, the person on the other side is completely and totally evil. And the person who's, the good guy is completely and totally good in every way. But you touched on something there. I mean, you're going to school with the same kids whose parents are absolutely in favor of communism, you know, and would have reported you had they known, whatever your stance was, or at least you lived in fear that was a possibility. So you shared a neighborhood, you shared transportation in a school or whatever with people who had the exact opposite opinion of you when it comes to communism. Is that accurate? Is that what you were indicating as far as?
Yeah. So that's pretty accurate. So I have mixed feeling when somebody said, see something, say something, because in Vietnam it's the opposite of what we say here. I remember when my mom was living under communism in North, was born in Haiphong. And she said to me, see something, say something is how they operate. So your neighbors will tell on you. For example, she gave me an example. She had 5 chickens in the backyard, and she cannot butcher them for food unless she gets official permission from the local authority, right? And if you didn't do that and you secretly kill one of your own chicken for a meal, then your neighbor could report you that, oh, well, I saw 5 yesterday, but only 4 today. What happened? So that's the kind of see something, say something we had in Vietnam under a communist war. Or actually under communism in North Vietnam. And so I have mixed feelings about it.
Mixed feeling. So mixed feelings mean you kind of you can kind of see both sides, or there's pluses and minuses on both sides. Is that what you mean?
In the United States, people say, well, see something, say something. And I automatically revert back to what my mom told me.
So you can see the value of like, hey, yeah, if you see a crime or you see something bad going on, you see the value in, hey, bring it up and say something. But you also see the danger of people reporting their neighbors for not saying or doing something dangerous, but for saying or doing something that is simply on the opposite opinion of the government. Is that
exactly? And so. If you see a crime, if you see somebody building a bomb or whatever it is, I would definitely do that. But I, living 2 lives, I mean, half of my life here, half of my life there, you get mixed messages in your head, and sometimes you kind of revert back to what you've learned before. And so I'm very methodical about the way I think. I really have to think through things in order to make sure what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. I certainly don't want to report on my neighbor who has a Trump flag flying. Right? Or a Second Amendment flag flying.
Or for that matter, a Biden flag flying.
Right. And I think that's what the left might be leaning towards. If you have a conservative message, a bumper sticker, I don't want people to report on me on my First Amendment rights. And I think that Bill of Rights that we have is incredible. The only country in the world that has a long-lasting constitution. And this is the reason why I adore and I will do anything I can to protect the Second Amendment.
Hey, Quang, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said, you made a distinction that you grew up in a communist war and that you didn't want to, let your classmates know what your parents did for their for their occupation. What do you think? What do you think would have happened to them if it became public knowledge?
Yeah, so I remember when I was very young when my mom said this to me. She said, we like to open our doors, the front and the back, just to get the wind blowing through. And she said, it wouldn't take much for somebody to ride a scooter by and toss in a hand grenade.
Wow.
That was a real possibility.
That was a big possibility. And I have a brother, like I said, he was a Vietnamese airborne officer. And as soon as he gets home, he's out of uniform because he doesn't want to be recognized as an airborne officer. I mean, he's out in the battlefields probably 6 or 8 months out of the year. And so that's what we live with. We live in a very careful way, even though we were in South Vietnam.
So 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, kind of this woke movement started. A lot of politics on the left took an even harder left turn, and a lot of things happened since then. COVID and the BLM riots, and Trump and Biden, and now Trump again. Do you see? Is it hyperbole to compare this period of history in the United States with some of the things you witnessed when you were growing up in Vietnam when the communists were taking over? Is that hyperbole, or do you see some similarities?
Well, let me just say this, and I, as the chairman of Judiciary, I have to deal with facts. I can't be in the middle somewhere. I have to either it's fact or it's not. So when you talk about the Vietnam War, you have to understand the politics behind the Vietnam War, okay? We have the Paris Peace Accords. We have an agreement that says that every bullet spent, every plane crash, every helicopter destroyed will be replaced by Americans. And who reneged on those promises? It was the Democrat. It was the 93rd Congress. And then it was again supported by the 94th Congress. So clearly that the Democrats did not want us to exist. And if you look at after the Vietnam War fell and we have a Democrat president in 76, so what happened to the killing fields? The killing fields happened between 1976 and 1978, where 2 million people were slaughtered in the fields. Okay?
Can you I know the history of the killing fields, I know what you're referring to, but can you give a few more details? What exactly, when someone hears about the killing fields in Vietnam, what exactly happened? Talk about the details there.
All right, let's go to the political details first. Okay. So war was defunded by Democrats. I'm talking about both the Vietnam and the Cambodia campaigns were defunded by the Democrats. And those Democrats were who? Joe Biden. They were Ted Kennedy. They were the people that are, believe it or not, running the country today after 50 years. Think about that for a second. So me as a child growing up, I understand who defunded that war. Now, so let's look at the fact. Did any of these people ever come to us and said, we made a mistake? The defunding of the Cambodia campaign, the Cambodian campaign caused 2 million people to be killed. Has anyone on the left side ever come up to me or you or the public and said, blood on my hands? Never said that. Okay? So there you have it. Why? The Pol Pot was basically emboldened by the fact that the United States government, not the military, abandoned Vietnam and Cambodia. And I'm very emotional when I talk about it. Okay? And if you look at Cambodia, why did it happen? Communism happens, it doesn't just happen because somehow somebody ran for office and got it. It's about total control. And you can see this is approaching that Second Amendment thing. You can't control people who are well-fed, educated, with firearms. You can't control those people. So the first thing you have to do, you have to control the food source. Then you got to control the guns. And then Cambodia happened because somebody decided that if you have an 8th grade education or higher, you shall be killed, because we don't want smart people to be able to fight. That's how drastic it was. That's how drastic it was. So they took teachers out, they took engineers out, they took doctors out, they took nurses out, they took everybody that had an 8th grade education and higher and slaughtered them. 2 million people in 2 years. And I hate to say this, but when's the last time you hear people talk about the killing fields?
Yeah, very rarely. It's kind of part of the reason. I don't think people remember. And when I was growing up, I certainly read a lot of books by Vietnam vets, and I was, it was fascinating to me in the late '80s and the early '90s. But I don't think it gets talked about. It's almost forgotten history at this point. And there's been so much that has happened since, but so many similarities to what did happen. For example, do you see similarities between Vietnam, and everything that happened in the 60s and 70s, and the Ukraine? Do you see similarities there, or do you think it's a totally different situation?
I think it's somewhat different situation. Vietnam happened for a different political reason. I mean, you have the South Vietnamese soldiers or army being supported by Americans, and then you have the other side being fully supported by the Soviet Union and China. People forget China was involved in the Vietnam War, as well as where do you think those T-34 came from? Right, those tanks.
The tanks, the Chinese, yeah.
And the VC were driving. They came from the Soviet Union at the time, and so where I look at it is it's not quite the same. The United States is now supporting Ukraine, dumping billions of dollars in there. And, for a guy that actually worked on aerospace, I kind of secretly, and not secret anymore, but I kind of enjoy the fact that we are exposing the weaknesses of the Russians.
Of Russia, sure. Mm-hmm.
Through that war. So for somebody that worked at Northrop Aircraft at one time, I kind of giggle about it a little bit and understand, but man, we're talking about wasting a ton of money there, and we're not closing our border. Now, I'm okay. Hey, listen, man, America first, right? Close that border. Fentanyl, human trafficking, sex trafficking. I have to deal with those issues daily at the House of Representatives.
Yeah, governing in a border state, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, and I will tell you, it's not fun being here in a border state when you see that we have a governor that won't do anything. You remember that Governor Ducey, before he left office, he actually put those containers out there to block part of the border. I mean, the current governor removed them all.
Jeez.
Wow.
So it's interesting that you have come to the Second Amendment and as a supporter, not because it was a hobby of yours, not because you grew up hunting with your grandfather, and you just have an interest in guns or whatever. You came to it for a very political reason, for a life-saving reason. I think that you have a different profile than a typical Second Amendment supporter, or a typical gun owner. Is that the reason? Is that tell us what would the United States be like if we didn't have the Second Amendment, or what is your fear of losing Second Amendment rights?
I don't think you would have that microphone in front of you right now if we didn't have the Second Amendment, and the left was to take over the country, the nation. You wouldn't have that microphone. I wouldn't be sitting here on a laptop talking to you. That's my worst fear. And being who I am as an individual that came out of the war, I resort to the lowest point of my life as the baseline. And then that's what I don't want us to be, to go as low as I can. But I've been so low that I can actually look up and say, I'm going to fight to make sure I don't ever come back to this low point again. And I don't want you to be there. I don't want your children to be there. I don't want your grandchildren to be there. I want my grandchildren to be there. Because at the end of the day, the helicopter isn't going to be at that rooftop for you and me in the United States, because where do we fly from here?
Yeah.
So that's where my mentality is all the time. So the Second Amendment isn't, you're right, it isn't about a hobby. It's not about my shotgun. It's not about the 1,000+1 drum that I spoke of at the conference. But it's more because politically, we will not survive if that was to go away. And I said this all the time. Here in the media in Arizona, they refer to me as the guy that wants to expand the Second Amendment. That is not true at all. I'm not here to expand the Second Amendment. I'm here to try to crawl back what was taken away from us.
It's interesting you say that. It's so interesting you say that, because I just, right before this segment, made the mistake of saying expand the Second Amendment and actually had to casually correct myself. You're absolutely right. We're looking to preserve it, not expand it. We want to get back what was taken from us.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
And the other thing that, I belong to a political party that actually supports the idea of protecting the Second Amendment. But in so many ways, I wish all 31 or 33 of us at the State House would say, let's be on the radio. Let's be on the program. Let's learn about, just when I got into the room, you were talking about Bruin. Understand what Bruin is. Understand what Heller is. Understand what McDonald is. I wish we would all understand so that we can fight. And I say this all the time to kids when I speak at high schools. If you don't understand your rights, you cannot defend it. And I think too many of us legislators are not paying attention to the details of what's happening at the court system on a daily basis, on the weekly basis, when it comes to defending the Second Amendment.
Excellent point. Truly appreciate you doing so much to fight. I appreciate you giving us the time and coming on and telling your story. Absolutely fascinating. Do you have a website? Is there some place where people can find out more about you, or anything you'd like to drive people to?
Right. You can go to Q or Quang, Quang, for FOR Arizona, or actually use number 4. That's okay. So quangforarizona.com. You go there and you can see some of the bills. And by the way, I just want to say this. I said this at a conference, and you both heard me. Arizona is protecting the Second Amendment industry. You cannot file a frivolous lawsuit if a gun is misused or illegally used. I think we might be the only state. So, if you have any manufacturing companies listening to you, Arizona is the place to be. You can't be sued.
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing so much that you've done, Quang. Keep up the good work. Keep up the fight. And I'd love for us to keep in touch with you, and let us know if there's something else that you need to promote, or something else that you guys have done, or anything. Gun Owners Radio would love to get the word out to our listeners. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Real quickly before I sign off,
sure.
We got about 30 anti-gun bills introduced for January of 2025. 30. Now, if you and I were to sit down, we couldn't come up with more than 5. Right. I promise you, if you and I were sitting down in a room, we locked ourselves up with a big giant pot of coffee, and Rich too, we could not come up with 5 anti-gun bills. These guys came up with 34 last year, 30 this year.
It's amazing. And Arizona has progressively gotten less pro-Second Amendment over the last 10 years. So it's not like it's a slam dunk that you guys are going to have to work to overcome a lot of these. There are definitely some folks in government in Arizona that disagree with you. Seems like it's centered around the cities. The further away you get from Phoenix, from downtown Phoenix, the better the voters are. But still, it's not a foregone conclusion that you guys are going to defeat these things. So you definitely need help.
And by the way, those 34 gun bills that we had last year introduced in 2024, this 2024 session, none of them saw the light of day.
Good.
Nice.
Congratulations.
So
Great job, Quang. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much for joining us and telling your story. Thanks a lot. Dude, that was a crazy story.
That was wild.
That was a crazy story.
Well, I mean, he has real life experience. Why it's so important to be able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And also defend free speech.
Yeah.
You know.
What a great guy. What a.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's working hard. It's so interesting. There's such a stereotype out there that, gun owners are rednecks, or they came from the outback or the South, and they're whatever, and they have something. Here's this is a very, I see it more and more and more. I mean, California is such a melting pot of people with different backgrounds, and a lot of refugees have decided to make California their home, mostly because it's like him. He ended up the last place he was dropped off in Pendleton, so it's like, all right, well, this is my home now. And I hear it from so many different communities: the Chaldean community, the Vietnamese community. We've interviewed people from. We interviewed Alex from he grew up in Russia.
Yeah.
So many of these communities are like, look, I'm not a gun owner because I needed something to do and I needed a different hobby.
Right.
It's because I was on the business end of oppression and tyranny.
They experienced it, firsthand experience, right?
That was crazy.
Yeah.
Don't forget, put the dough back and donate. Donate to FPC. Go to firearmspolicy.org. Give $10, $20, $50, whatever you can do. Don't forget to check out Straight Shooter, one of our very favorite sponsors. We love Straight Shooter, straightshooter.ac. Their number is 619-922-3937. The change in season triggers a lot of people's allergies. Straight Shooter can help you with your indoor air quality. Give them a call. Make sure you're breathing clean air. If you have a heater air conditioner, you're in San Diego, call these guys, straightshooter.ac or 619-922-3937. And don't forget to ask them about their 1776 deal. So, all right, let's go to deployment. Shall we do some deployment?
Let us do some deployment.
All right, deployment. This is where we talk about where we need you this week. What's coming up? Where do you actually need to be this week? And we have some really cool stuff coming up. Check, by the way, if you're a coffee drinker, red, white, and badass brew, go to rwbbcoffee.com, rwbbcoffee.com. Use GOR and get 15% off. Order some coffee. Help support the cause. Okay, so we got a couple things. Why don't you want to talk about let me talk about the Intro to Communications class, and let's have you talk about the next one, Rich. Intro to Communication class. Sign up today. Spaces are filling up. Learn how to stay connected during emergencies. $360. Sign up today at gunownersradio.com. It's November 23rd and December 7th. Lunch is included. And for $360, you get the class, you get lunch, and you also get a Baofeng UV5R programmed with local repeater. So that's a radio.
Yep.
It's basically a ham radio class. It's kind of an intro to everything you've ever wanted to ask about ham radios. And John Baldwin, who's one of our board members, is
it's not exactly ham. We use ham radios, but I mean, it's you learn how to stay connected and stay informed when the grid goes down. And
Gotcha.
And those are the tools that John uses. But it's like super informative. We got really great feedback from all the students.
So it's way more than just ham.
Yeah.
Ham's just one of the tools that you use.
Ham's just one of the tools just to stay connected. But then, John goes into attack, it's a mapping, how to basically create your own offline Google Maps. And then, it was really eye-opening for me, when I went. So
nice.
If you are concerned, how valuable is it? How valuable is it to you to be able to talk to your loved ones during disaster? And this will give you the tools, and this will get you going. This class will get you going on that path.
Nice.
Yeah.
Prices go up March 18th. Is that right?
Yeah. It takes extra effort to program those radios with all the local San Diego repeaters, and that's why it's priced that way, because it takes.
Yeah, but it says March 18th. I don't think that's right.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I think that is should be November 18th.
Okay, prices go up November 18th. The prices go up November 18th. So you want to sign up for this before November 18th. So it's $360 today. If you wait till after November 18th, it'll be $380. Again, it's on November 23rd, which is in a couple of weeks, and then December 7th. It's out in El Cajon at American Shooters. So sign up today. Very fascinating stuff. All right, Mastering Self-Defense Week. Talk about that, Rich.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to announce that Massad Ayub is going to be coming to San Diego in March. If you don't know who Massad Ayub is, he's kind of like the godfather of self-defense. He's been involved in two-way advocacy. He's a court, was it a witness?
Professional
expert.
Yeah, expert witness. There you
expert witness. And also a trainer for decades now. And I taking a class with him, to me, it's kind of like taking a guitar class or a singing class with, Mick Jagger or Paul McCartney. He's like one of the greats throughout the decades. And so it's really exciting that he's coming here to San Diego. So if you wanted to train, Mike Pettingill, he's already signed up for a class with Moss, but it's in Washington. And so Mike has to pay for travel,
hotel,
and room and board.
Yeah.
And so if you want to train with,
the best
legend,
there you go.
So
taking a self-defense class from Massad Ayub would be like taking a music class from Mick Jagger. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean,
or taking a football class from Joe Montana.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, I gotcha.
Go Niners. Yeah. So the tickets are going to go on sale on November 20. So they're gonna fill it fast. So I strongly recommend.
It's already. My understanding is filling up fast already.
Especially the live fire. The live fire is actually almost. There's only a couple spots left over. So
get on it.
But also there's the classroom portion of it, which. People, I get it. People want to shoot with Moss. They want to go to the live fire portion. But there's also the 2-day armed citizens class, which gives you the tools, the information on how to carry yourself as an armed citizen.
There you go.
And that's super important for anybody that carries, anybody that has a gun for self-defense. Anybody, especially that has a CCW permit, and also instructors too. If you want to pass that information on to your students.
So at the very least, sign up for the class section. There's 2 days of classes, 2 days of live shoot. Live shoot's almost sold out, so you better make that decision quick. But we'll have a lot more space for the classroom. But still, you better sign up. It's gonna sell out. So it's you're playing musical chairs.
Right.
All right, monthly meetings. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. 19th, which is Tuesday, we're going to have our normal monthly meeting, North County Shooting Center. It's at, North County Shooting Center, starts at 6. Food will be provided, run by John Baldwin, Elliot. Elliot Kagan's running that. And we're going to talk about the election. We're going to talk about some other things that are going on locally. It'll be a fantastic, great time. But then the normal Wednesday and Thursday meeting, we usually have the Wednesday meeting either at PWG or Discount Gun Mart, and then we have the South County meeting down at Labella's Pizza. Both of those are combined into one event, which is cool, and it happens on the 20th, which is Wednesday. November 20th, 5:30 p.m. to about 8 p.m. It's at the U.S. Courthouse for the Southern District of California on 333 West Broadway. It is... the event is a panel discussion. It's called Tackling the Bruin Bear. A little play on words. Oh, I get it. Bruin Bear. Insights into the historical test for gun regulations from advocates and experts. Join us on November 20th in San Diego as our esteemed panel, moderated by Honorable Larry Burns. He's a retired judge and kind of a local legend, and featuring UCLA law professor and testifying expert Adam Winkler, who's, again, a legend, renowned Second Amendment litigator and author Stephen Halbrook. You've heard us interview him, and he wrote one of my favorite books on the Second Amendment. And then William Taylor, they share how they approach addressing the tricky and evolving historical test for the constitutionality of gun regulations set forth by the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which was an extremely important Second Amendment Supreme Court case a couple years ago. This engaging panel will not relitigate Second Amendment cases, but will instead illuminate how seasoned advocates and experts approach a difficult historical test. The panel will be followed by a reception. This is awesome. They have about 100 seats. Now, you have to register. You can't just show up. We need you to register. But this is going to be in lieu of our Central and South meeting. We're going to be at this event on the 20th. So what you want to do is you want to go to sdcgo.org. You want to click on the graphic, and that'll take you to the registration page. So sdcgo.org. Click on the graphic, register today. It's free. It's free. It says that if you're an attorney and you need the continuing education credits, that you can pay $40 and they'll file all the paperwork. But if you're just coming, it's totally, totally free. So again, for free, Wednesday night, sign up, come join us. It'll be very, very cool. Rich, you coming to that?
Yeah, I'm definitely going. I think one of the things that's really kind of interesting is like that last speaker is the director of litigation for Everytown. Is that?
Is it? Is that who it is?
Yeah. So, you have
So
Stephen,
he's the other side.
Yeah, you have Stephen Hallbrook, right? Who's our guy,
Yeah.
right? And then it'll be really interesting what kind of conversations that they're going to have around Second Amendment and what kind of rationale. I've always been frustrated with all the mental gymnastics that you have to do to make common sense gun control, make sense. And so I'm really looking forward to see what kind of discussion they have between these two, luminaries.
I missed that guy's bio. To be honest with you, I was so impressed by the other bios, I didn't even look at that guy.
Yeah.
I thought, well, there's these really impressive guys, and then whoever this other clown is.
Yeah, it's not just going to be an echo chamber. Right?
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. Well, that even makes it even more interesting. Well, you'll get the opportunity to meet these great guys. You'll get the opportunity to see this panel discussion and hear them talk, and you'll get an opportunity to meet Rich in person. Now that you know what he looks like. I'll be there. You'll be a bunch of San Diego County gun owners folks. I highly recommend that you do this. This is extremely interesting. It's more than just the huge. It's actually going to be a discussion. You'll walk away with more arrows for the quiver. You'll get a better understanding of exactly what's going on in Second Amendment, and the discussion over Bruin is invaluable. All right, do we have Sam on yet or no? He's on?
yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well, great. Well, that's your deployment. So now let's talk to Sam. All right, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Stump My Nephew. We found out years ago that my nephew, who at the time was only 19, now he's a little older than that. I think he's 25, just had a birthday, found out that he is extremely good when it comes to gun trivia. So if you send in a gun trivia question and we use it on the air, you'll get a hat or a shirt. If you stump him, so if you ask him a question he doesn't know the answer to, then you get a very special prize, which is super cool, but rarely does he get stumped. He doesn't get to see these answers or questions beforehand. The first time he hears it is when he's live on the air. So this really is very challenging. And I tell you, there's no cheating. I take special enjoyment out of getting him stumped. And
Yes, you do.
Rarely do we stump him. Hey, man, how you doing? You there, Sam?
Yeah, how are you guys?
Good, man. How's it going?
Can't complain. A little bit under the weather, but could always be worse, right?
Yeah, it can always be worse. Did you hear the interview we had with the legislator from Arizona just before you?
No, I just missed it.
I'll have to get it over to you. It's really fascinating. He, in the early 70s, escaped Vietnam. His dad was fighting against the communists, and he escaped Vietnam. It was really fascinating. Now he's a very pro-Second Amendment legislator in the state of Arizona. He's very passionate about it. It was really, really good. Okay, so don't forget, we're doing Put the Dough Back and Donate. Donate to FPC. Donate to Firearms Policy Coalition. Man, are they doing a good job. They have so many lawsuits and so many victories. Please take the time. Go to firearmspolicy.org. StumpMyNephew.org. Give them whatever you can, $10, $100, anything in between, or even more. Stump My Nephew is sponsored by Seal One, seal1.com. Go to your local gun shop and ask them if they carry Seal One, because you want to clean, preserve, and lubricate your firearm. If they don't have it, ask them to order it, or just go to seal1.com and order it yourself. Seal One makes gun ownership easier and smell better. So Seal One, they sponsor because they care about the Second Amendment. So thank you so much, Seal One. All right, Justin from Oceanside. You ready for the question, Sam, from Justin?
I hope so.
All right. Justin from Oceanside asks, what was the first double-action revolver?
Justin from Oceanside.
I'm assuming
Thanks for
he's
writing
talking
in.
about like mass-produced, commercially available.
Yeah, gosh, what was the first double-action revolver? Justin from Oceanside, thanks very much for writing in. Ooh, that's a tough one. What was the first double-action revolver? Because I can tell you easily what the first DASA autoloader is.
What's the first? What does DASA stand for?
Double action, single action. So
right, double action, single action. What was the first?
So the first. Well, let me provide some background information for people who are less familiar with hammer-fired firearms, which is
that's what we're waiting
now,
for.
A lot of people now are used to shooting striker-fired pistols, where every trigger pull is the same, and there's no hammer. Double action refers to when a squeeze of the trigger both cocks and releases the hammer. Single action refers to an action where the hammer is already cocked and squeezing the trigger simply releases it. So if you see a hammerless revolver, it's not really hammerless. The hammer is internal and it's double action only. So what was the first double action revolver? This is tough. I would have to say it was the Smith & Wesson hand ejector, but I think he's got me with this one. That's a toughie.
Well, let's ask you a couple of things. First off, tell us about the Smith & Wesson.
So Smith & Wesson revolvers have slightly different clockwork from Colt. Slightly different lockwork from Colts. One externally noticeable difference is that the cylinders actually rotate in the opposite direction. But in the later part of the 19th century, Smith & Wesson produced a line of revolvers in various popular calibers that had. Oh, you know what?
What?
No, I don't think it was the hand ejector. I think it was the number one. Ooh, but some of them went under different names.
Yeah.
Oh, I might be getting these mixed up.
That's okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's move on. Do you have a second? It's not that. That's not the right answer. But before we tell you what the right answer is, or what Justin from Oceanside claims the right answer to be, do you have a second? If you had a second choice, what would it be?
Final answer.
I'm going to say it's either the number one or the number three, but I don't think it's either one of those.
It is the. Are you ready for the answer?
Sure.
Okay. He claims it is the Beaumont Adams double action percussion revolver patented in 1856. Have you heard of that before?
The name rings a bell. Yeah, he's got me there.
It was the first revolver that could be used both as a self-cocking revolver and as a single-action revolver. The Beaumont Adams revolver is a black powder double-action percussion revolver originally adopted by the British Army. That's actually a really good question. It's a good trivia question because it is, right? Because I don't think anybody would think to go that far back to a black powder percussion revolver. I don't think anybody would think it would be that far back.
Yep. He got me with that one. It's a good question. It has a definite answer. There's no wiggle room. Well done. What do you say, Tom from Oceanside?
Justin from Justin. You got that wrong too.
Okay.
Justin.
Well,
do the trumpet.
I'm sorry I have failed you yet again. You can kick me off the show.
Oh, hey, gun websites on the comment section is asking about the Merwin and Hulbert as the first double action. Does that ring a bell? Merwin and Hulbert?
I've heard that name as well, but I couldn't speak to
Don't
it.
have any additional info on that one?
Either of those. I don't know anything about either of those guns.
All right. What else we got from the comment section? Anything?
No.
No?
Yeah.
All right. Well, go. Got
No,
anything?
gun websites are just saying Smith & Wesson was the first bored-through cylinder.
The first bored-through cylinder.
Yeah.
They used Roland White's patent for that. That was actually a big deal for a while. The bored through cylinder, because manufacturing a cylinder just by taking a drill press and drilling the holes in the cylinder all the way through, instead of having to pilot drill them, was a big, important innovation.
Interesting. Well, there you go. All right. Well, listen, do you have a few minutes? I'm going to keep you. We have a couple of news stories we want to talk about, and this is working out so well that I want to keep you on and see if you want to weigh in on any of this.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Let's see what we got. All right. First one is, by the way, thank you so much. Awesome job. Thank you, Seal One, for sponsoring it. Thank you, Justin, for writing in. And Sam, thank you for continuing to be a wealth of information. Appreciate you.
Lost my light source there.
So, all right, let's see what we got. Okay, so first off, this was interesting. There is change.org is actually a website where you can start your own petitions. It doesn't actually do anything. You don't actually, like, it's not like the government has to act, but you can start a petition and get a bunch of people to pay a couple of bucks and sign and whatever, and you can set a goal. It's kind of interesting. It's not official, but it is kind of interesting. But I'm seeing a bunch of people talk about nominating Brandon Herrera as director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. As individuals valuing our Second Amendment rights and aware of the current complexities in gun laws and legislation, we see Brandon Herrera as the perfect candidate for the role of director of the ATF. Half of American adults, approximately 114 million people, currently own firearms, showing the widespread relevance and importance of this issue, according to Pew Research Center. Having a knowledgeable and practical individual such as Brandon Herrera as an FFL holder with a deep understanding of the rights conferred by the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and the current laws surrounding it, et cetera, we believe that nominating Brandon Herrera as ATF director will offer a well-informed perspective to the ATF and contribute to a fair and balanced approach to legislation enforcement. I was not really all that familiar with Brandon Herrera before this, but I thought it was interesting that he's getting so much attention. But I did look him up, and he seems like a really good, solid dude. Rich, did you hear this guy before?
Yeah, I was familiar with Brandon. He had his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
AK guy, right?
Yeah,
and then,
2 million people.
Yeah, he knows how to YouTube, right? So,
yeah, 2 million people follow him, and he's had some interesting. Some of his bigger YouTube videos have been testing Joe Rogan's JFK bullet theory. 9.4 million people saw that. The worst internet gun fails, number 7, the Darwin Awards, with 8.4 million views. He's also known as the AK guy, right? In fact, the name of his company is AK Guy Inc., firearms manufacturing company, and the developer of a 50 caliber AK pattern anti-material rifle known as the AK-50. Sam, do you know this guy at all?
Not personally, but I've seen some of his work. He's certainly an interesting pick, I think was the word that was used, and I definitely agree with that. I had actually heard about, perhaps not the petition as such, but I had heard that there was some interest. I didn't know how serious it was in bringing him in as the ATF director, but I'm much more inclined to believe it. First of all, I think that would be really neat. I think that would be interesting. I would like to. I've long complained that the people who write the gun laws don't understand firearms at all. Right? It would be like if all of the departments of motor vehicles in all the 50 states, and like even let's say the Department of Transportation, was run by the Amish. Not to cast aspersions on them, but they don't drive cars,
right?
And they don't fly airplanes,
right?
And I don't think they ride trains. So why would you have the Department of Transportation run by people who don't really have any reason why they would understand the subject matter.
Or even like them.
Right.
I mean, they're anti,
Right.
train and plane.
Well, I think it's even worse than that because Amish people don't go around proselytizing to the rest of us, telling us that driving cars is sinful. They just
Right.
do their own thing, and they want to be left alone. But
They want
a
to
lot
be
of the
left
brass
alone.
at the ATF do try to go after otherwise law-abiding gun owners and gun dealers with their Byzantine regulations and constant reinterpretations of laws to create new crimes ex post facto, because maybe they don't think they have anything better to do, like go after the real criminals.
Yeah.
But
Well, and Brandon Herrera, by the way, 28 years old, this guy. 20,
he?
yeah, he's 28
Oh,
years
wow.
old. He actually ran for Congress in Texas.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that.
Yeah, and he almost beat another Republican. He is a Republican. He almost beat a Republican incumbent who he was very critical of. They're fairly critical of, but he came real close. And I got to tell you, man, I'm getting the impression that he is a serious contender. Is that the impression you guys are getting, Rich? You think it sounds like this is not a tongue in cheek thing? It sounds like they're saying, "Hey, yeah, let's get this guy in."
Well, I don't know. Trump's already put some
Yeah,
people in
Yeah.
place already, right?
right.
And so,
If Matt Gaetz can be AG, Brandon Herrera sure as hell can be
Yeah.
ATF director.
Yeah.
I get it. At 28 years old, I hope the entire ATF quits and protest. I mean, those guys. What kind of person works for the ATF anyway? This guy's a bunch of losers. Like, put a 28-year-old in front of them, in charge of them, and muzzle that beast. I say. I mean, how bad could he? Couldn't be. How bad could he be? It sounds like he'd be wonderful. So
I have a question for you guys. So would it be better, in your opinion, to have somebody like Brandon in charge of the ATF, or would it be better just to disband it?
That's a good question. Why not both? Put him in charge of the ATF and then fire everybody. And his whole job is just to sit there in an office and put out educational videos. I don't know. What do you think, Sam?
well, first of all, what I think is more likely, I mean, it would be great to have Mr. Herrera or anyone else who actually understands, has a modicum of understanding of firearms and firearms law as director of the ATF. And the fact that it would be great is why it won't happen. We're not that lucky. I think that the incoming presidential administration will do the exact same thing it did the last time Trump was in office, which is leave the seat vacant and just have a series of acting directors for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. If the ATF, I don't think the ATF should exist. So number one, get rid of it. But that's an act of Congress. He's the executive branch. So I think that if he honestly, sincerely could get somebody in there that went after actual bad guys, there are bad people who try to use what we cherish and use, for defense. They use it, to commit crimes.
If they actually did what they advertised that they were going to do.
Yes, but what I have seen of the ATF is that they are a predatory organization that goes after they're full of anti-gun folks, and they go after law-abiding gun owners. They go after gun shops that are law-abiding, and they make their life impossible to live. I can tell you horror story after horror story. The ATF, the folks that are in it, the folks that run it are horrible people and need to be booted or at least muzzled. So, preference number one, get rid of it, but that's not really what the executive branch can do. Preference number two, put somebody in there that will at least muzzle them and protect law-abiding people from the monsters at ATF, and then redirect their efforts towards catching real bad guys.
Some of you may recall, astute regular listeners may recall that I actually wrote a post for the SDCGO blog a while ago, within the past couple of years, I think, called "Enough is Enough. It's Time to Disband ATF."
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. Hey, from the comment section,
Yeah.
Gun Websites is saying Michael Cargill. Are you guys familiar with Michael Cargill?
Oh, gosh.
Absolutely, who isn't?
It's slipping my head. Tell us about Michael Cargill.
He is the gentleman who brought the bump stock case.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
That Michael Cargill.
Has over 35 years of firearms experience in the military and private sector combined. Yes, keep going. What else do you know about Michael Cargill?
That of course he was a dealer, which is why the case became a thing. He comes from Texas.
Yeah.
And that's about the extent of my knowledge, but I've heard him speak before, in video recorded form, of course, not in person. And he seems, he does not at all come off as the kind of person who one of the nationwide 2A orgs just sort of looked for as a plaintiff. He seems really passionate about 2A issues and very well informed and also very well spoken, which is an important thing for public figures to be. Unfortunately, like it or not, you don't just have to be a subject matter expert to be good at your job in one of these cabinet positions. You do really have to be a good presenter, or at least it helps.
Yeah.
And so I think he would be a really good pick.
Army vet. He was in the Army. He was a sergeant, went into the private sector as an instructor, taught more than 50,000 people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, he's in Central Texas. He actually runs Central Texas Gunworks, or did. I don't know if he still does, but he's an FFL. I think the point here is, I don't know much more about him than that. I'm obviously familiar with the Cargill case, which is awesome, and the bump stock issue and what they were able to accomplish. But I think what the point here is, what we all agree on, is get somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, actually supports Second Amendment rights, understands firsthand, because they are an FFL, what the challenges are from these ghouls at the ATF and how they're abusing their power and abusing firearms dealers. I think that's kind of the point. Whether it's Herrera or Cargill or somebody similar, get somebody in there, like you said, Sam, who can communicate but is an actual subject matter expert because they support the idea of the Second Amendment and have worked in it. I think that's probably the point.
Right.
All right. What do we got? What else do we?
That's a novel idea, right? Having people that know actually what the subject matter of what the department's supposed to govern.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I want that as an idea. Okay, so Trump being elected, and of course now he's starting to appoint people. California Governor Gavin Newsom plans to meet with the Biden administration this week to discuss zero-emission vehicles and disaster relief issues that have been targeted in the past by President-elect Donald Trump. Basically, the headline is California Governor Newsom will spend part of week in D.C. as he tries to Trump-proof the state's policy. So before he's even in office, before he's even taken the oath again, Gavin Newsom is already running for president in 2028 by Trump-proofing the state of California. So before Trump has even done anything, he wants to preventatively stop him from doing anything, which is kind of ludicrous. And the reason I say, this isn't a real thing. He's not really doing anything. The reason I say that is California is it's such on the opposite end of the Trump spectrum. What is he actually? I mean, it's already Trump proof in California. There's not a whole lot that Trump is going to be able to do. Now, I think that Trump in California anyway, I think he can improve the makeup of our court system, our federal court system, like he already did somewhat. I think he can continue to do that. But this dramatic meeting and statement about how he's meeting with Biden to Trump-proof California, it's so ludicrous. It's not helping voters. It's not helping anybody. All it's doing is it's making it look like Gavin Newsom is doing something in an attempt to. I'd put $1 and a beer on Gavin Newsom running in 2028. And this is his first official act towards that end. Let's see. California won against most of the Trump administration's legal challenges over the state's environmental and other progressive policies during the Republicans' first term, said Thad Kauser, a political science professor from the University of California, San Diego. Quote, the question is, has Donald Trump changed the legal playing field so much through the court appointments of his first term that he'll be able to win on policies in his second term, end quote, he said. And if you look at the map, many of the counties who voted for Biden over Trump in 2020 voted for Trump over Biden in 2024.
Right.
So it looks like there was a fairly significant shift, and it was almost kind of a shift back, to be honest with you, because a lot of those counties were already very, very Republican. So I'm sure that he's worried to an extent, but this is just this is PR. This isn't real.
Well, if I may,
Sure.
I'd like to ask 2 questions.
Go for it.
First, how long has Gavin Newsom been in office as governor of California?
Too long.
He came in 20. I have to think about that. 2010.
2010. Okay.
Let's say. I'll look
So
it up
this
while you're
is-
talking. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So he's on, and he replaced who? Jerry Brown?
Yes. Yeah. He was.
The fact that there's a pause, I think, is really
Yeah.
telling about how long it's been. So this is year 14 for Gavin Newsom, about to be year 15 for Gavin Newsom as governor of California.
Officially 2011, but 2020. Go
2011.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so he's entering his 14th year as governor of California. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, of which I happen to be a resident, our governors have a limit of 1 term. It's
Yeah.
one and done. They get elected, they take office, they do their bit, and then they're done.
Is it one
I
4-year
think
term?
that's really great.
Is it a 4-year term? 6-year term?
I believe it's 4 years. Yeah. But that's not to say that Virginia governors aren't otherwise involved in politics once their terms expire. But I think that term limits are a really important thing. And so did the founding fathers. But my second question is, why is anyone even seriously entertaining the idea of rendering a system of government proof to a duly elected public official?
I know. Yeah.
Why are we serious? Why is anyone seriously entertaining the idea of deliberately, openly undermining our political system because they disapprove of someone who's been elected before that person has even taken office? Now, I understand there's the argument that, oh, well, perhaps that person may also be a threat to the political system. But if the argument is, oh, well, we have to become authoritarian to save the country from authoritarianism,
Right.
or we have to become whatever ist to protect the country from whatever ism, then the system has already failed, right?
Yeah, it's truly. I mean, it's a lot of it has to do with the message that's been projected. I mean, this whole idea that Trump is the end of democracy and compare him to other dictators and whatever, which is completely untrue. And that was on full display when he was at the White House with Joe Biden. Joe Biden's got a big smile on his face, welcoming.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand is that there's this inner circle of political people on both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, and their whole job is to say, okay, we need to paint this person in the absolute worst light we possibly can.
Right.
And then there's kind of the next circle are these people that go, all right, let us know what the message is. That's the message. Great. We're going to take that to the public. And then there's kind of this broader circle, and it gets even broader after that. But the problem is the people in the inner circle that are going, hey, we're going to say end of democracy. That's going to be our thing. If you elect Trump, it's the end of democracy. Okay, that's going to be. And the other people go, gotcha. All right. But the inner people that came up with that, they know they're making stuff up. Right. They understand the game. They know that, hey, you know what? Once the election happens, that whole thing's out the window, and we got to go back to the drawing board and figure out something, or we want or whatever. And as you get further away from that group, people actually believe this.
Right.
They actually go, hey, that's the message. I actually believe that he is going to deport people that are in interracial marriages, and it'll be the last election we ever have because he's going to get rid of. They actually believe that stuff. So if you're Gavin Newsom and you're pretty sure that 65% of your state hates Trump, which, by the way, for the first time in I think, well, in a long time, if not forever. Trump got like 40% of California.
Right.
That doesn't happen. A Republican doesn't get 40% of California when they're running for president. Not since like Reagan.
Right. Right.
So anyway, if you have 60% of your state that you think agrees with you, and you have all this, rhetoric to your back that, oh, he's a horrible, tyrannical, anti-democracy dictator, then you're going to run with it. You're not going to actually do anything. You're going to run with it. So he's not doing something that's reasonable. He's not doing something that is logical. He's doing something that's completely and totally emotional, and he's already got this whole group of people that have convinced 60% of his voters in his state, that Trump is Hitler. So he's just playing on that. He's just leveraging that. It's a springboard is all it is. He isn't actually concerned about these issues. He knows Trump personally. He actually complimented Trump on the job he did during COVID. I mean,
Right.
So this whole thing is. I think one of the things I really want to work on in 2025 on this show is pulling back that curtain.
Yeah.
I don't think that people realize just how fooled they are by media and by political operatives. And this is nothing more than an example of exactly that.
Well, there's a really interesting there's a sort of an interesting statement I've heard to that effect that's actually a leftist critique of the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not a leftist, but I still think this is an interesting point.
Fire away. What is it?
If one election is all that separates us from fascism, if we're perpetually one election away from fascism, as some top Democrats have insinuated, then we are not really one election away from fascism.
Do you remember which leftist said this?
No, I don't know if it's attributable to any individual one person, but I still think it's it's
a good point. Well, I think you're absolutely right. Anyway, what else do we want to say about Gavin Newsom? Anything else?
There was that kind of speaks to this new article that where on the Democrat side they're floating the idea of a shadow cabinet. Have you heard about that?
No.
Yeah, so
a shadow cabinet.
A shadow cabinet. So here's an article on it. It says North Carolina Democrat floats shadow cabinet to take on Trump administration. Nichols proposes to appoint Democratic lawmakers to voice specific opposition to each of Trump's cabinet secretaries. And so
politically not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably actually strategically a good idea.
Yeah. But I mean, isn't that just like the normal course of business for
well,
I mean, it should be, right? If they're
just a little more organized, but
yeah.
I wish Republicans would do the same thing, or
Yeah, but I mean, just the verbiage that they're using is like
so they'd pick. So in other words, so let's say Brandon Herrera got ATF,
right?
Then they would pick Bob Smith, Mr. Bob Smith, who's anti-gun, and his whole job for the next 4 years would be to criticize Brandon Herrera.
Yes, yeah. So for example, further down in the article, his proposal is to appoint 26 Democratic leaders in Congress to mirror Trump's cabinet level officials and challenge each initiative of the incoming administration. Senator-elect Adam Schiff, for instance, could be a shadow attorney general who would call out Trump's efforts to replace career Justice Department attorneys with those loyal to the president.
So I think the interesting thing about it, strategically, a good idea. Obviously, I don't agree with the people who are doing it, but that's how organized they are getting. So don't grow complacent. We talked about this last week, how, hey, Trump's in office. That doesn't mean all your problems are solved.
Yeah. Take your foot off the gas.
Yeah. Don't grow complacent. You need to, make hay while the sun shines or something like that. But anyway.
Not familiar with that one.
All right. Last thing I wanted to talk about. You're not familiar with that? Make hay while the sun. What is that? What it is, Sam? Make hay while the sun shines. Yeah.
All right. By the way, on that topic,
the topic
more
of
time
hay?
passes. Yeah. Oh, well, no, not on making hay. On the shadow cabinet sounds like way too cool a term than anyone in Washington deserves. That's upsetting. They don't do cool stuff.
Yeah.
But
Mental
the
note:
more time
make a
passes-
punk band named Shadow Cabinet.
There you go.
Yeah, Shadow Cabinet up there with
Yes.
Shadow Wizard Money Gang. But
Yes. or Shadow. Shadow Bureau.
Matt's laughing over there. I've never seen Matt laugh so hard. You got him, Sam. He's laughing pretty hard. Anyway, all right, keep going.
Well, I didn't come up with that, but the more time passes, the more I feel bad about like 8 years ago or whatever poo-pooing the term deep state.
Yeah.
That hasn't aged well, especially with how many people came out in 2021, 2022 timeframe who had worked in the federal government under that administration, under the Trump administration, and said, yeah, we tried to stall everything the administration did, and we're proud of it. Like,
Yeah.
that hadn't people spent the previous 4 or 5 years denying that kind of thing happened?
And here we are. And now they're basically setting up their own deep state. All right. Okay, so we got a tweet. We're gonna display this tweet for you. The local Republican Party. I haven't talked a whole lot about this. A lot of you may remember back in the spring, the Republican Party, for a second time, decided not to endorse our guy Jim Miller, who was running for re-election on the Cajon Valley School Board. Which, by the way, he got like 3 times the number of votes as his opponent. I mean, he absolutely, we did a great job. Jim did a great job. Everybody who supported him did a great job. And I came out at that time and said, guys, don't donate to the Republican Party, the Central Committee. Don't donate your time or your money because they're not working with us. And I got a ton of support. Like 90% of the folks who contacted me about it were like, yeah, we get it. You know, and these are elected officials who are Republicans. These are people involved in the Central Committee, all kinds of people. And then 10% wet their pants. And they decided that they didn't like me being mean to the Republican Party. Well, whatever. So the Republican Party, specifically the chair, a guy named Corey Gustafson, who's the brand new chairman of the Central Committee, he tweeted out, today, Chairman Corey, this is him tweeting. He's tweeting about himself, but it's him. Today, Chairman Corey Gustafson met with the Lincoln Club, which is another political organization, and Carl DeMaio to focus on what unites us as Republicans. Quote, while differences will always exist, our priority is clear. Republicans in San Diego must stand together to push back against the Democrat uniparty's dominance, Corey said. With a commitment to building common ground, Corey is strengthening the Republican Party for the challenges ahead. Together, we're creating a united front to protect San Diegan's future. Learn more about the Republican Party at their website, et cetera, et cetera. So this tweet was a lie. This was a total lie. That meeting did not go well for Corey in any way. In fact, they're going to vote for a chair, which was already scheduled in December. And the chances of Corey continuing to be the chair of the Central Committee for the Republican Party is somewhere around slim and none. He has completely alienated so many people. He is the problem. So the problem San Diego County gun owners is having with the Central Committee, the Republican Central Committee, who should be a natural ally. How many times just on this show did we talk about the Republican Party being they're the gun party or whatever? We should be natural allies. And since March, when he was installed as chair, he has been the problem. And this tweet is not just an interpretation issue. Like, it's not like, well, he saw it one way and we saw it another way. No, all the feedback came back that his supporters are completely abandoning him for the lack of performance and lack of honesty. Donors are completely abandoning him, like major donors. There are people in San Diego who support both parties, but specifically the Republican Party. There are people that support with like 6-figure donations. Like, here's $100,000, to do X, Y, or Z or whatever. They're abandoning him. But I got to tell you, the poor job he has done since he was appointed, San Diego County gun owners, our issues with the Central Committee and us standing up and saying, hey, this isn't right. He's doing a bad job. Therefore, we're walking away. just from the Central Committee,
All right.
we were the canary in the coal mine. We were the ones saying this isn't right, and we're not just going to sit here while he craps on us. We're not just going to take it. We even a couple of months ago took a step towards patching things up and doing a joint event.
Right.
It was a total disaster. It showed a lack of interest in supporting us as an organization. And he just kind of came off as like this entitled trust fund baby and couldn't believe that we wouldn't just do what he says. I'm not running San Diego County Gun Owners to go kiss some ring on some, self appointed important way.
Well,
no.
that's the whole idea of the Second Amendment, right?
that it's
Yeah. So people don't have to listen to the
Right.
elite class, right?
right.
They don't have to be ruled by the elite class.
Well, and it's for everybody. I think that
Yeah.
there's kind of this thought like, look, you guys need to fall in line. We don't need to fall in line. And if you're a gun owner out there, number one, you should be extremely proud of the way San Diego County gun owners conducted ourselves. We didn't just, bend over for the Republican Central Committee and this guy, Corey. We said, no, our priorities are number one. Gun owners, Second Amendment, that's our priority, number one. But number two, you shouldn't have to fall in line with those who are elected to represent. They should have to fall in line with the Second Amendment. We shouldn't have to give up our principles or compromise, because they simply, we're the Republicans. What else can you do? Well, I'll tell you what else we can do. We can reject you. We can get people elected without you, like we showed with Jim Miller. And then we can get the word out and say, hey, look, we're tired of being pushed around and we won't do it any longer. So, Corey, you can be a bully all you want, but it looks like your time is very, very limited. I think there's a very slim chance that he gets reelected. But that tweet, I had to talk about it because it was such a distortion. It wasn't even a distortion. It was such an out-and-out lie of what happened at that meeting.
Basically gaslighting San Diego.
Yeah, basically exactly what he's doing. He's gaslighting San Diego. I can tell you that, he's trying to – so Carl DeMaio won. Even though he wasn't the endorsed candidate, he won. This was, and Corey had a horrible time at this meeting. It did not go well for him at all. He lost a ton of support, and now he's trying to, like you said, gaslight San Diegans. So good luck with that, Corey. Looking forward to the next chair. Looking forward to 2025 and 2026. Working with the Central Committee if Corey is gone. We're very much looking forward to that. But mostly what we're looking forward to doing in the next 2 years is what we've done for the last 9 years, which is assert ourselves and put the Second Amendment first. And I thank you all so very much for being members. If you're not a member, please join us. There really, truly are people that are clearly not on our side. There are people who say they're on our side that aren't. But San Diego County Gun Owners and Gun Owners Radio, we're here to do what's right, and we will continue to do that. So I think that's it. That's the whole show. What do you think? Anything else? Any closing remarks, Rich?
Fun show.
There you go.
Great show.
Sam, you still there?
Yep.
Got any closing remarks?
Well, yeah, just that this kind of thing goes to show how important SDCGO is and why people support SDCGO and the sister organizations, because SDCGO is not just a puppet for the Republican Party. It is an organization that is concerned about the issue and works on the issue and does not, as you say, kiss the ring, just because the person wearing it happens to have an R or a D next to his name.
Amen to that. Sam, thank you for being a part of the show. I liked this, you being a part of the roundtable here. Will you do that every week with us?
Oh, I'd love to if you'd have me.
Good. All right. Excellent. Well, that's it. That's the show. Matt, thanks for running it. And I think that's it, everybody. Don't forget to check us out online, follow us on social media, join San Diego County Gun Owners, join Orange County Gun Owners, join Inland Empire Gun Owners, and then again, put the dough back and donate. Go to firearmspolicy.org, make a donation, whether you're listening to us live on Sunday or you're hearing us on a podcast, and thank you all so very much. That's the show. Thanks for listening.